I still remember the exact moment I realized my own family would never be in my corner. It's too expensive, Rihanna. We can't justify throwing money away on that. My father's words hung in the air as I stood clutching the robotics camp brochure. $300. That's all I needed to spend a week learning from actual engineers. $300 that apparently might as well have been 3 million. I was 16, quiet, always building things from scraps while my sister Seraphine basked in the spotlight. The golden child, the star. I nodded and walked away, swallowing the lump in my throat. What else could I do? 3 weeks later, I overheard Seraphine asking for money. Not $300, $1,200, for a cheerleading trip. Of course, sweetie, my mother cooed, pulling up her banking app. Transferred. Have an amazing time. The sound of my heart cracking echoed in my chest. I watched from the hallway as they hugged, their backs to me like always. I wasn't even worth noticing. That night, I sat on my bed surrounded by circuit boards and coding tutorials I'd printed at the library. My eyes burned, but not from staring at screens too long. If I want anything in life, I whispered to myself, I'll have to build it with my own hands. My parents, Caleb and Morella, always claimed they treated us equally, but actions reveal truth, don't they? While Seraphine received instant funding for every passing interest, I learned to make do with nothing. That imbalance shaped everything, our childhood, our opportunities, our futures. It taught me something too. While Seraphine learned the world would hand her whatever she wanted, I learned to calculate, to plan, to work in silence, to build something from nothing. I just didn't know then how far they would take their favoritism, or how cold my revenge would eventually become. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you this. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most? If you have, you'll feel this story deep in your soul. And if you know that kind of pain, hit subscribe. Not because it helps me, but because stories like this remind us that sometimes silence and strength are the best revenge. Fast forward 6 years. I'd put myself through college on scholarships, working weekends coding for small businesses, while my classmates partied. My dorm room looked more like a startup office than a living space. Whiteboards covered with algorithms, 3 monitors running simulations, empty coffee cups everywhere. Meanwhile, Seraphine had cycled through 5 different majors before dropping out entirely. Dance, marketing, psychology, communications, acting, each one abandoned when it required actual effort. I'm exploring my passions, she'd announce at family dinners, and my parents would nod proudly. So mature to know what you don't want, my mother would say, serving Seraphine the largest portion of dessert. I kept my head down, focusing on my project, predictive analysis software that could revolutionize inventory management for small businesses. Not glamorous, but practical, valuable. Every night, I'd work until my vision blurred. Every morning, I'd wake up and refine my code before classes. While Seraphine posted beach photos from her 3rd vacation that year, I was building something real. By senior year, I had a working prototype. When I demonstrated it to my professor, his eyes widened. This could be huge, Rihanna. Have you thought about seeking investors? I had. But startup funding requires capital for a minimum viable product. Market research, legal fees, server costs, about $70,000 to get off the ground. I didn't have family connections like my roommates, didn't have wealthy alumni mentors, didn't have parents who believed in me enough to co-sign a loan. But I did have my pitch deck, my prototype, my determination. And foolishly, I still had hope that maybe, just once, my parents might see me. I printed market analyses, financial projections, competitor breakdowns. I practiced my pitch until I could recite it in my sleep. I even wore a blazer I'd found at a thrift store. Then I drove home, heart pounding, to ask my parents for the loan that would change everything. I didn't know I was walking into a trap of my own making. That hope can be the most dangerous thing of all. They couldn't even bother to clear the dining table for my presentation. That's what I remember most. Seraphine's fashion magazine scattered across one end. Dad's crossword puzzle open in the middle. Mom's half-finished cup of tea leaving a ring on my financial projections. As if my future wasn't worth tidying up for. "So," I began, hands trembling slightly as I laid out my business plan. This software uses predictive analysis to help small businesses optimize inventory and reduce waste by up to 40%. My father glanced at his watch. "I've already created a working prototype during my final year," I continued, pulling up the demo on my laptop. "Two professors think it has real market potential." My mother nodded absently, her eyes drifting to the window where Seraphine was lounging by the pool, phone in hand. I pushed forward, explaining market size, competition gaps, projected revenue. I'd rehearsed this pitch for weeks, every number memorized, every question anticipated. "I need $70,000 to get started," I finally said, my throat dry. "Not as a gift, as a loan, with interest. I've drafted repayment terms based on industry standards." That's when they exchanged the look. I'd seen it my whole life, that silent communication that excluded me. "Rihanna," my mother sighed, as if I'd asked for something ridiculous. "It's too risky. Startups fail every day." My father leaned back, arms crossed. "We're not gamblers. We can't pour money into something that might collapse." I felt my chest tighten. It wasn't just rejection, it was dismissal. As if I hadn't spent years developing this. As if I wasn't standing there with proof it worked. "Why won't you even consider it?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice level. "Maybe if you had a more stable idea," my father said, already folding my business plan closed. "You should start smaller, or get a conventional job." I gathered my materials in silence, the pitch folder still crisp and barely opened. They had already moved on, discussing Seraphine's upcoming photo shoot. As I walked to my car, a terrible clarity washed over me. My success was never their priority, I was never their priority, and I never would be. 4 months after the rejection, I was piecing together my future with freelance coding jobs. Progress was slow, each dollar saved, bringing me microscopically closer to my goal. Then my cousin Leora called on a Tuesday afternoon. "Hey, congrats on Seraphine's new car. That white BMW looks amazing in her Instagram photos." My stomach dropped. "What BMW?" Leora paused. "Oh, I thought you knew. She posted it yesterday, something about new wheels for a future star." I ended the call and drove straight to my parents' house, mind racing. There it sat in the driveway, gleaming white with red leather seats visible through the windows. A brand new BMW, price tag, easily $65,000. Inside, my mother was arranging flowers in the kitchen. She smiled when she saw me. "Rihanna, what a nice surprise." "Whose car is that?" I asked, though I already knew. Her face lit up. "Seraphine's. Isn't it beautiful? We got a great deal." "How?" The word fell from my mouth like a stone. "You told me $70,000 was too risky." My father walked in, frowning at my tone. "It's different. Seraphine needs support right now. She's pursuing her dreams, modeling, brand influencing, maybe acting. She needs a reliable car." I couldn't breathe properly. "How much did you spend?" They exchanged that look again. "How much?" I repeated louder this time. "You didn't spend anything," my mother said defensively. "It's none of your concern." It is when you rejected my business plan for being too expensive while buying her a luxury car. My voice rose despite myself. My father finally mumbled, "It was a loan. $725,000? The room seemed to tilt. 725,000? For a car? Not just the car, my mother clarified hurriedly. For her career launch, photography equipment, acting classes, a styling team. 10 times what I had asked for. For vague dreams Seraphine had already abandoned multiple times. What did you use as collateral? I pressed, though deep down I already knew. My mother's voice dropped to a whisper. The house. Their house. Our childhood home. Everything they had. Because Seraphine had convinced them she'd be famous soon. You know what hurts the most? Not what they did, but that I still tried to make them proud after everything. If you've ever given people too many chances, you already understand this pain. Don't just scroll, subscribe. Join people who've been through it too, because you deserve stories that make you feel seen. Watching Seraphine's career path change became my new hobby over the next year. Every month brought a fresh dream, each more expensive than the last. First, she was a model. Spent thousands on professional photos that never landed her a contract. Then, suddenly, acting became her passion. Drama coaches, headshots, and audition tapes that collected digital dust. By spring, she'd rebranded as a real estate influencer, despite never selling a single property. Summer arrived with her luxury lifestyle phase. She rented penthouses for photo shoots, hired editors to make her look like she owned them, and bought followers by the thousands. Every venture failed spectacularly. Then came the BMW incident. Seraphine decided to live stream herself cruising Beverly Hills, even though we lived nowhere near there. While trying to film herself making profound statements about success, she crashed into a utility pole in a mall parking lot. The car wasn't just damaged, it was totaled. Insurance refused full coverage because she'd lied on her application about how she'd used the vehicle. Meanwhile, I lived in a tiny apartment, eating ramen while coding late into the night. My small team worked for equity instead of salaries. We bootstrapped everything, stretching every dollar. Each week brought a new financial horror from my parents' house. Another missed loan payment, more money funneled to Seraphine's schemes. Their retirement accounts drained like bathwater. I watched from a distance, building my company brick by digital brick, while they mortgaged their future for Seraphine's fantasies. Then one Tuesday evening, my phone lit up with a text from my father. Family meeting tomorrow, urgent. Be here at 7. When I arrived, they looked like strangers. My father's face had aged years in months. My mother's hands shook as she poured coffee. Whatever they wanted to discuss, I knew it wouldn't be good news. But what happened next shocked even me. A daughter who thought her family couldn't possibly hurt her anymore. When I finally stood my ground, they called me heartless. But tell me, where were they when I was breaking? If you've ever had to choose peace over people, this channel is your space. Subscribe, not for me, but for every quiet soul who took their power back. We need your help, Rihanna. My father's voice sounded foreign, stripped of its usual confidence. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. We're going to lose the house, she whispered. I nodded slowly. Given their choices, this outcome was inevitable. Then my mother reached for my hand across the kitchen table. You should sell your home. The world stopped. Excuse me? I couldn't have heard correctly. Your apartment, my father clarified. You're young. You can buy another someday. We need the money to save our house. Blood rushed to my face. You want me to sell my place, the home I bought with my own money, working 3 jobs, to fix a loan you took out for Seraphine's car and failed influencer dreams? My father nodded solemnly. Family looks out for each other. The audacity took my breath away. The tiny apartment I'd sacrificed everything for. My safe space, my independence. What is Seraphine contributing? I asked, already knowing the answer. They exchanged that guilty look again. She can't help right now, my mother whispered. She's emotionally struggling, while posting brunch photos daily. No, I said, the words small but firm. What do you mean, no? My father's voice rose. I mean, no, I won't sell my home to fix your mistake. They exploded simultaneously. You're cruel, heartless, my mother sobbed. Seraphine is your sister, my father shouted. Do you want her on the streets? The front door slammed. Seraphine had arrived, right on cue. She swept in, eyes already wet with practiced tears. Rihanna, please, she begged. If you don't help, I'll never forgive you. You're ruining our family. I looked at her, really looked. Designer clothes, fresh manicure, new highlights. You ruined it yourself, I said quietly. Something snapped behind her eyes. The mask dropped completely. You think you're better than us because you're playing CEO? She snarled. Your company will fail just like everything you do. I waited for my parents to defend me, to say something, anything. They didn't. They supported her, just like always. So I picked up my keys and walked toward the door. Rihanna, wait, my mother called. I turned back one last time. You made your choice years ago. Now you get to live with it. I walked out and didn't return their calls for weeks. Little did I know, they were already plotting something much worse behind my back. Rihanna, sweetheart, there's something you need to know. Mrs. Alden, my childhood neighbor, cornered me in the frozen food aisle of the grocery store 3 weeks after I walked out of my parents' house. Her eyes darted around nervously. What is it? I asked, balancing a basket of microwave meals and energy drinks, the diet of a struggling entrepreneur. She lowered her voice. I overheard your parents at the community center yesterday. They were talking to a lawyer about your grandmother's land. My blood turned to ice. What about it? They're trying to transfer ownership to Seraphine. She squeezed my arm. I thought you should know. I thanked her, abandoned my groceries, and drove straight to my apartment. My hands shook as I unlocked the filing cabinet where I kept important documents. There it was, the letter my grandmother had written me before she died 5 years ago. My dearest Rihanna, it began. You build things. You create. This land should belong to you. The 5 acres on the edge of town. Beautiful, undeveloped land with a small cabin. Worth at least $300,000 now. Memories flooded back. Summers with Grandma, learning to identify plants while Seraphine stayed home complaining about bugs. Weekends helping Grandma maintain the cabin while my parents took Seraphine shopping. This land is for Rihanna, my grandmother had announced at her 80th birthday. She's the only one who appreciates it. My parents had nodded then, agreed to her face. Now they were trying to steal it from me. But why? The answer hit me like a truck. They needed collateral for another loan. The house wasn't enough anymore. They needed more to prop up their failing finances and Seraphine's expensive failures. I sat on my kitchen floor, surrounded by family photos I'd never had the heart to take down. In every picture, I stood slightly apart, always on the edge, always half forgotten, not anymore. This wasn't just about money. This was about erasing me completely, taking the one thing my grandmother had specifically wanted me to have. That night, something hardened inside me. The last thread of family loyalty snapped. This wasn't just betrayal, this was war. I didn't scream. I didn't post angry social media rants. I didn't confront them emotionally. Instead, I made appointments. First, a property lawyer who specialized in inheritance disputes, then a financial historian to track title deeds. Next, a mediator who could document everything legally. Finally, a security firm to protect my documents. Your grandmother's will is ironclad, my lawyer confirmed after reviewing everything. She left the land specifically to you, not to your parents with instructions to give it to you. That's an important distinction. I nodded, absorbing the information with a strange calmness. And if they try to transfer it? That would be fraud, he said simply. We can file a cease and desist immediately. So we did. The notice went out the next morning, formal, legal, and cold. No emotional appeals, no family sentiments, just facts and law. The backlash was explosive. My phone exploded with texts and calls within an hour of delivery. How dare you involve lawyers? We are family, my mother's voice screamed through my voicemail. You've always been difficult, but this is a new low, my father texted. Seraphine posted a vague Instagram story with the caption, "Some people love money more than blood." I blocked their numbers, muted their social accounts, and focused on my work. Because while they were plotting to steal my inheritance, something else had happened. My startup received its first major investment, $250,000 from an angel investor who believed in my software. I signed the papers the same day the cease and desist was delivered. Symmetry that felt like justice. When I finally stood my ground, they called me heartless. But tell me, where were they when I was breaking? If you've ever had to choose peace over people, this channel is your space. Subscribe, not for me, but for every quiet soul who took their power back. Success has a way of arriving when you've stopped waiting for approval. Within 7 months of that first investment, everything changed. My tiny startup that began in a dorm room suddenly had momentum. We secured a strategic partnership with a mid-sized tech firm that wanted to integrate our predictive software with their retail platform. Then a corporation offered to license our technology for their warehouse management, a 6-figure deal that meant I could finally pay my small team actual salaries. The most surprising part? Press coverage. A tech blog ran a profile calling me the quiet genius woman founder revolutionizing inventory management. 3 more publications picked up the story. For the first time in my life, people saw me. Really saw me. My parents didn't call to congratulate me, not even a text. Seraphine, however, couldn't resist commenting on my professional headshot when the article went viral. Lighting is everything, sis. Maybe invest in a makeup lesson next time? I didn't respond. I was too busy leading my company's expansion. Meanwhile, their financial situation collapsed entirely. Through mutual friends, I heard the bank had initiated foreclosure proceedings on the house. The loan payments had gone unpaid for months. Seraphine continued posting as if nothing was happening. Mimosa brunches, shopping hauls, inspirational quotes about manifesting abundance while her parents faced homelessness. I kept my distance, focused on building my life brick by brick. The quiet girl who nobody noticed was now being invited to speak at industry conferences. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had achieved more by being ignored than Seraphine had with endless support. But just when I thought the drama with my family was behind me, everything escalated to a level I never imagined possible. When I finally stood my ground, they called me heartless. But tell me, where were they when I was breaking? If you've ever had to choose peace over people, this channel is your space. Subscribe, not for me, but for every quiet soul who took their power back. Sunday mornings were sacred to me, the only time I allowed myself to slow down. No meetings, no emails, just peace and coffee. Until I opened my door to grab the newspaper and found an envelope taped to it. My name was written in my mother's handwriting. I stood frozen, envelope in hand, debating whether to open it or throw it away. Curiosity won. Inside was a handwritten letter on the cream stationery my mother saved for important occasions. "Dearest Rihanna," it began, though the formality felt hollow. What followed was 4 pages of carefully crafted manipulation. They were severing ties with me unless I agreed to their demands. Sell my home, give them $200,000. Transfer the title of my grandmother's land. Rebuild the family trust. The letter ended with, "Your actions reflect a person we don't recognize anymore. Unless you make these changes, we must protect ourselves from further pain." I laughed out loud. It wasn't funny, just completely absurd. Then the envelope slipped from my hand, and another paper fell out. It was a printout, some kind of transcript. I picked it up and realized what I was looking at. Seraphine's voice note, accidentally printed on the back of one of the pages. "Don't worry, Mom. Once Rihanna gives us the money, we'll cut her out permanently. She's too bitter to be part of this family. We'll be better off without her negativity." My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt strangely calm. This whole time, they'd been planning to take whatever they could get from me, then discard me anyway. The ultimate betrayal wasn't that they wanted my money. It was that they intended to use it as their final extraction before abandoning me completely. The clarity was almost beautiful, like watching storm clouds finally break after days of pressure. They never wanted me. They wanted what I had built despite them. I folded the papers neatly and placed them in a folder marked "Family." Then I brewed a fresh cup of coffee and opened my laptop. It was time to craft my final response, not with tears or screaming, but with the precision that had built my company. I didn't need to destroy them. They were destroying themselves. I just needed to step out of the blast radius once and for all. I spent 3 hours drafting an email, then deleted it all and wrote something much simpler. Sometimes the most powerful messages don't need fancy words or emotional outbursts. Sometimes they just need clarity. I called my lawyer first. "Send this through official channels," I instructed. "I want documentation that they received it." He agreed, concerned by what I showed him. Then I hit send on the coldest email I've ever written. Subject: "Regarding your demands, I owe you nothing. You dismissed my dreams. You gambled your home for Seraphine's fantasies. You attempted to steal my inheritance. And you intended to cut me off once I saved you. I will not sell my home. I will not offer financial help. I will not transfer any property. Do not contact me again unless through legal channels. Rihanna." No tears, no screaming, no begging for understanding. Just facts. Delivered with the same emotional investment they'd shown my dreams. The response was immediate and exactly what I expected. My phone blew up with calls. Text messages poured in. "How could you be so cruel? After everything we've done for you, you're killing your father." I blocked every number, changed my email, instructed my building security not to let them in. Mutual friends called, pressuring me to just talk to them. "They raised you," one family friend insisted. "They provided the bare minimum while stealing my future," I replied calmly. "And now they want to take what I built anyway." People called me cold, heartless, an ice queen. I didn't argue. Maybe I was. Or maybe I'd simply learned that some relationships aren't worth saving, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away. Within a week, the calls stopped, the texts faded, and for the first time since I was 16, I could breathe without feeling the weight of their expectations and disappointment. Freedom didn't feel cold at all. It felt like peace. Seraphine's downfall played out publicly, one desperate social media post at a time. First came the defensive posts, cutting toxic people from my life. Some family only care about money, not happiness. Then the fake success stories. Huge announcement coming soon. Can't say much, but this opportunity will change everything. Followed by vague health complaints. Dealing with stress-induced health issues. Send healing energy. Too exhausted to reply to DMs. All while her follower count steadily dropped. I watched from a distance as reality crashed down on her. My cousin Leora kept me updated despite my requests not to. They lost the house, she texted one Tuesday. Seraphine's moving into some tiny apartment downtown. She's telling everyone it's temporary while her luxury condo is being renovated. There was no luxury condo, just a studio apartment with peeling paint and a view of the dumpsters. Her posts became more desperate, filtered photos in borrowed clothes, pretending to be at exclusive events when she was actually at public restaurant openings. Then came the reaching out. Not directly to me. She had too much pride for that. Instead, she sent messages through mutual friends. Just check if she's okay. Tell her I'm thinking about her. Ask if she might reconsider helping family. I didn't respond to any of them. The most revealing moment came when she crashed a networking event where I was speaking. She wore a dress she couldn't afford, makeup too heavy for the professional setting. "Rihanna, what a coincidence!" she exclaimed, as if she hadn't deliberately sought me out. I simply nodded and turned away. "You can't ignore me forever," she hissed. "I'm your sister." I faced her one last time. "Biology isn't family, Seraphine. You made that very clear." Later, I saw her crying in the parking lot, the mask completely fallen. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the transcript. Once Rihanna gives us the money, we'll cut her out permanently. I drove away without looking back. My parents lost their home on a Tuesday. I know this because 5 different relatives called to tell me, despite my requests for space. "They're staying at a motel," my aunt explained, "just until they figure things out." The motel became an apartment half the size of mine. The apartment became a spare room in a cousin's basement. Their possessions dwindled with each move. The community that once admired them gradually learned the truth. Not from me, I never spoke about it, but from their own desperate attempts to borrow money. "Did you know they took out a loan for Seraphine's car?" People whispered at the grocery store. "I heard they tried to steal Rihanna's inheritance," others murmured at church. Their social standing collapsed alongside their finances. Dinner invitations stopped. Country club friends disappeared. The mask of the perfect family shattered beyond repair. Still, they tried to reach me. Handwritten letters, messages through family. Once, my father even waited outside my office building. 5 minutes, he begged the security guard. "Just 5 minutes with my daughter." I watched from the window of my office as he was escorted back to his car, a 15-year-old sedan that replaced the luxury vehicle they could no longer afford. My mother took a different approach. She sent a package to my assistant, a box containing my childhood teddy bear and a photo album. "Please," the note read, "we made mistakes. We're sorry." The teddy bear's ear was still missing, torn off when Seraphine had a tantrum at age 7. The photo album contained dozens of pictures of Seraphine, with me barely visible in the background of a few. The package itself proved they still didn't understand. 6 months after the foreclosure, I saw them at a cafe. They looked smaller somehow. Older. My father's confident posture replaced by a slight stoop. My mother's designer clothes swapped for department store basics. They noticed me and froze. I nodded politely and left. That small acknowledgement led to another letter. "We were wrong. About everything. Please give us another chance. But some chances expire. Some trust, once broken, can't be rebuilt. And some lessons must be learned the hardest way. My company expanded to 3 offices within 18 months: Boston, Chicago, Seattle. Our client list grew to include names I once thought beyond my reach. I bought a new home. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed, "Look at me." A modern 3-bedroom with large windows and space for a home office. Entirely mine. No mortgage, no debt. "You could afford something much bigger," my realtor had suggested. I shook my head. "I want something I can fill with peace, not empty rooms." The press coverage continued. Quiet disruptor. Tech's new voice. The understated genius changing inventory management. I gave interviews occasionally, but kept my personal life private. When asked about my journey, I spoke about determination and resilience, never about family betrayal. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. While my parents and sister had chased appearances, I built substance. While they borrowed against tomorrow, I invested in it. While they demanded loyalty, I earned respect. One evening, after closing a major partnership deal, my team celebrated at a restaurant overlooking the city. Champagne flowed, speeches were given. My lead developer raised his glass. To Rihanna, who taught us that sometimes the quietest voice in the room has the most to say. I looked around at these people, brilliant minds who chose to work with me, who believed in my vision, who showed up daily with dedication and honesty. This was my real family. Later that night, standing on my back deck watching the stars, I realized something profound. Success wasn't about proving my parents wrong. It was never about revenge. It was about proving myself right. About honoring that 16-year-old girl who whispered, "I'll build it with my own hands." And I had, not with anger or bitterness, but with determination. Not to show off, but to create value. Not to hurt others, but to help myself heal. The quiet child had found her voice, not by screaming, but by building something that spoke for itself. Wasn't that harsh? They're your family. I've heard that question countless times over the years, from colleagues who learn fragments of my story, from dates who notice I never mention parents, from well-meaning friends who believe blood ties should overcome everything. My answer is always the same. What makes someone family? Is it sharing DNA, living under the same roof? Or is it something deeper, respect, support, and genuine care for each other's dreams? My parents provided food and shelter. They kept me clothed and educated, but they never saw me, never valued me, never believed in me. And when they had the chance to help launch my future, with the same support they'd given Seraphine countless times, they dismissed me without a second thought. Then they tried to take what my grandmother left specifically for me. Then they demanded I sacrifice everything I'd built to save them from their own choices. Then they planned to cut me off anyway. At what point does self-respect outweigh obligation? At what point do you stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm? For me, it wasn't one big moment, but 1,000 small cuts that finally severed the tie. I don't hate them. Hatred requires emotional investment I'm no longer willing to make. I simply recognized a truth many people never accept. Sometimes the healthiest family you can have is the one you choose, the one you build, the one that celebrates your victories instead of resenting them. 3 years after cutting contact, I received a letter from my father. He was dying, cancer. He wanted to see me one last time. I visited him in hospice. We didn't have a dramatic reconciliation or tearful apologies. We just talked quietly about weather and books. He didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't offer it. But as I was leaving, he whispered, "You were always stronger than we knew." I nodded. I was. That was our goodbye. Seraphine still posts about her journey to success on social media. My mother lives in assisted living, funded by a distant cousin. And me? I found peace. Not through revenge, but through boundaries. Not through winning, but through walking away. The most powerful word in any language isn't yes or love or sorry. Sometimes it's simply no. Sometimes revenge isn't about payback, it's about peace. And if this story touched you, subscribe right now. Because somewhere out there, another person is watching in silence, needing a reminder that they're not alone, and your one click might help them find it.